Creating your once upon a time stories. Hi, I'm Elisa Ganz. I want to give you a little brief background about me so you can understand a little bit of me going forward. You can learn more about me at elisagans.com. But I'm a parent, I'm a presenter, I'm a party event planner, and a project consultant. And this is my family. I recently got married in October of 2015, and this is the most recent family picture that I have. I have 3 older sons with their wives, babies are coming, and I have my 2 younger daughters. And I love them very much, and I'm so grateful to be a mom. I've had 3 recent graduations. I graduated to grandmotherhood, which is amazing. I graduated from grad school, and I graduated from singledom and married the love of my life, Bradley Ganz. So I have some passions, but the one passion I'm going to talk about today is regarding family history. So I love looking to and learning from the past, sharing memories and lessons I've learned in exciting and creative ways to engage the future generation. I really want to turn the hearts of the children to fathers so they can discover their heritage and have some appreciation and know who they are. And I love teaching others. So this is how it all begins. A little play on my name there. This is me. I am one of 5 children. I'm the oldest daughter, and it all began about 10 to 12 years old. I don't remember exactly when this picture was taken, but that's about right. Grandma Biggs is my inspiration. We have had family reunions for the past 42 plus years, and she has always gathered us together and wanted to make sure that we know we come from a rich heritage and to really appreciate the sacrifices of the past. Of course, she always lines us up in these chronological photos. You can see me there on the trampoline. I'm the 3rd one in, and I'm one of the older cousins, and this was just a group shot of all the girls. But thanks to Grandma, she insisted that we have family reunions every year, and since her passing, we have faithfully done so every year, and it's been a blessing to our family. Well, back in the day when I was young, about 10 to 12 years old, we would have contests, Book of Remembrance contests. And I don't know about you, but I don't know if you had one of these books. But we would bring our book every year, enter the contest, and we'd get a crisp $1 bill. And of course, she would photocopy it on a piece of paper and insert that into our book. But we got to spend that $1 bill, and it was amazing. But she wanted to encourage us to start young to write our life stories. And she would insert family group sheets, pedigrees, and the latest family story that she had created and get us started on understanding our heritage. And of course, we would get a ribbon, which was always fun. Now, have you seen a book like this? Every family, I think, has a book. And I appreciate all of the sacrifice and hard work that any family member in my family might have done to put these books together. But I have to be honest, I've never read that book. I know there's probably amazing stories in it, but it hasn't invited me. And I don't think that that's going to really entice a child and welcome them and say, hey, learn about your ancestors. A book like this might. So my amazing Aunt Dolly created these coloring books of Grandpa and Grandma. You can see they're simple. They are easily bound, and her artistic abilities aren't the greatest, but she was able to capture some small stories that have played a part in our lives and help us remember that Grandpa was a human and a little boy and lived a life like us. And this was just a small story about how he learned how to swim. Well, the cow didn't like his bathing suit, so he jumped in naked right into the river. And of course, here comes a car. But every child loves to see a naked bum, and this has always been a fun little tradition. Now, because of being in a master's program and in my undergrad, I've done a lot of research, and so I wanted to find out if there was any research out there about tying the relationship between telling stories or family history to the well-being of us. And absolutely, I found something. So you want to have emotionally healthy children, you need to tell them stories. You could read this later, but I'm going to touch the highlights of this. Children who knew more of their family history had more functional family lives, more self-control, greater feelings of self-worth, and fewer signs of depression or anxiety. They saw themselves as a larger family narrative, and because of that, they felt more secure and more confident. They had a stronger sense of self, and they had a greater ability to overcome life's challenges and to be able, with emotional resilience, face life's ups and downs. And I have to tell you, I have experienced this firsthand from my grandmother, who instilled this love of family and showing us our heritage. And I really see that the emotional resilience and the feelings of self-worth and the high self-esteem in my family members has been amazing. And isn't this what every mother, grandmother, grandfather, grandparent would want for their children or their grandchildren? So, Dieter Uchtdorf is a religious leader in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I loved his approach and his little article that he had given to some young women in his church about Once Upon a Time. And I want to read this briefly for you. Over the years, I have been exposed to many beautiful languages. Each of them is fascinating and remarkable. Each has its particular charm. But as different as these languages can be, they often have things in common. For example, in most languages, there exists a phrase as magical and full of promise as perhaps any in the world. That phrase is once upon a time. Aren't those wonderful words to begin a story, once upon a time? It promises something, a story of adventure and romance, a story of princesses and princes. It may include tales of courage, hope, and everlasting love. In many of these stories, nice overcomes mean and good overcomes evil. But perhaps most of all, I love it when we turn to the last page and our eyes reach the final lines and we see the enchanting words, and they lived happily ever after. Isn't that what we all desire? To be the heroes and heroines of our own stories, to triumph over adversity, to experience life in all its beauty, and in the end, to live happily ever after? And the day will come when you turn the final pages of your own glorious story. There you will read and experience the fulfillment of those blessed and wonderful words, and they lived happily ever after. And he ends it in the name of Jesus Christ. Well, I urge you, it's now, it's time to create our once upon a time stories, not only for ourselves, but for our posterity and our ancestors. As I've as I've grown, I remember most the stories about the monster and the heroic prince sweeping in to save the princess from a dragon. I'm a helpless romantic. I love fairy tales. But I know our lives are far from fairy tales. But our children love to hear our stories, just as much as they love to read that little book. I would dare say they love it even more. They love the monsters in our lives, when we were the prince, the princess, or even the frog at times. We don't need to wait for someone else to tell our stories. We're living that story. We need to create our own story and the stories for those who we love who have passed on. I know it's easier than ever before with tools I will share with you. You and your children can now relish in the joy of storytelling with real life stories, not just make-believe. I want you to enjoy creating your story, so I'm going to be able to share in the future video presentations and some other story helps. So in my instructional series, we've just concluded with the intro to Once Upon a Time stories. The next one is creating your own Once Upon a Time stories, adding pictures to your Once Upon a Time stories, and finally publishing your own Once Upon a Time stories. You can learn more or contact me at elisagans.com, where all of these videos will be published with additional helps and downloads. So now let's get your Once Upon a Time created. Go to the next video and we'll learn all about the details.